Yes, it's sort of, well, no, actually what happens very, very first thing is the audience is sort of brought in, and you kind of have this sort of foreshadowing of the very end, but then we're in kind of Victoria Station in 1915, and then they're brought out of the station so the action then moves through the space there, and then we're into a pub, which is in the same sort of time, and then we move out of the pub and straight into a dressing station in somewhere in Belgium near the front line. And then, so there's a little bit of the war, but most of the war stuff has actually been shelved for the purposes of this production. Yeah. Because the space isn't big enough. We had, you know, one of our first ideas was to create a kind of whole trench, and so you've got a kind of scene in the battle, but that's something with the sort of time frame that we've had here that we've kind of had to nix.
So you have, I mean, you actually have, by dint of chance, I would say, you have a sort of a modern story in that sense, that you have all these soldiers coming home, you know, who have been affected by the war, and sort of that impacts on society in an indirect way. That, you know, the home front is the front in a different kind of sense.
And you had the women at home, some of whom were earning more than colonels.
Yeah,
you know, sort of the process of the kind of research that we did. You know, the sort of some of the women working in munitions factories and doing the jobs that the men had previously done suddenly, and that, I mean, I think that the other thing that happened immediately post-war, which probably we should have jumped on, being very typical, was the flu pandemic. Because that killed more people than the war did, and so I don't know. It was a very weird. The beginning of the 20th century was one horror following another. And it's about how people cope with that, really. And then what we've got is a very small, very personal, very intimate horror in the midst of massive global horrors. So it's a murder story and a love story. We wanted to do something scary. Was the beginning. We wanted to tell a horror story, and we wanted to do it in a space that wasn't a theatre. So we basically wanted to scare people in a basement, and that was pretty much it. And so we
legitimately, as opposed to the way we usually do.
That was never proved.
Train station.
But and so we had this first principle of wanting to scare people in basements and jump out of dark corridors, and we were looking at horror stories, and we couldn't find anything that actually we thought was scary enough. And then Alan happened across this true story in a tiny little microsite about a body that was found in a suitcase at Victoria Station, at Charing Cross Station.
Who knows?
Who knows? I think it was Charing Cross. I just saw Victoria written up there and it distracted me. And then this story of the body in the suitcase, and then it was weird because the story then disappeared, as things sometimes do on the internet, and we could never find it. And so we got really obsessed with trying to track it down, and we were researching at the Imperial War Museum, and the story got huge, and it became really about the war, and then it kind of really sort of went down again. The story moves from very personal, very intimate spaces to very large, very public spaces, and back again. And so you've got kind of pubs and railway stations, but then you've also got kind of tiny sitting rooms and cramped field hospitals. And this space gives us the ability to play with all of those. So we're actually 1 minute we're in there and we've got sort of 20 people in the pub scene, and then the next you're kind of in somebody's front room just hearing a very intimate conversation between them. And then of course the final act of seduction and murder is also very private and very small.
And it's by far the smallest room in the building.
So we just really like the idea of packing people in. And so you can almost hear the other audience members breathing. It's kind of, it does make it quite nasty.
Yeah, it does.
You feel like an accessory because you're actually there, and it's not like someone's up on stage. And you kind of sometimes feel that you should stop it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the level of involvement I think that works for me so much better with site-specific promenade work. Because you don't have that detachment, you have no choice but to be involved in what's going on, and that's what makes it so much more of an experience. I mean, I think an hour in this basement for me beats 2.5 hours in the Oubliette.
And I think one of the things that we felt, because there's a lot of this stuff about, you know, this sort of site-specific and big things, and, you know, sort of Punch Drunk and Shunt and these sort of companies, they do it in a way that we sort of felt that we wanted to kind of mash that up with sort of a stronger narrative. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's partly because we come from a tradition of narrative theatre, I think, both Alan and I, and want to tell a very clear story. And I think often when you get these things, when you're wandering around a tower block in Wapping, I mean, I saw the Punch Drunk Faust, and I thought bits of it were amazing, but it was almost like a collection of installations. And I found most of the time, and Alan particularly, I think, found most of the time spent there was wandering around looking for a story, which was part of the point, and that's good, and that's, you know, we're not really in the business of slagging off anyone else's work.
No, not at all.
I think we felt we had a story that we wanted to tell clearly in a fairly linear fashion, although, as we said, our sort of approach has been sort of almost modular in that we have these number of scenes, but we want everybody to see all of them so they can see the story. Yeah. Because that's what's important, and that's what theatre.
And then it puts as much emphasis on the emotional journey and the psychological journey as the physical journey.
Yeah.
And I think that those 3 journeys, it's good value for money, isn't it? 3 journeys for the price of 1 ticket.
And also, kind of like necessity sort of has very much been the mother of invention working here, because we've got a very, very short time frame, because we have to do this thing in 2 weeks. And so pretty much we've got a kind of play ready to go, but we've had to cast it, we're going to rehearse it, and then we're going to perform it in a 2-week chunk. And so that means we can't kind of spend ages constructing intricate kind of models of trenches or kind of immaculately crafted kind of like early 20th century dwellings. We have to just go, you're in a room, here's some actors, they're telling you a story, you know.
And that's actually what forces us in a way to be what makes this piece site specific.
Yeah.
Is that we have to use the space as the sort of
canvas.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Rob Crouch, and I'm half of DonkeyWork. I guess I'm the front or the back of the donkey. And we're doing our piece, The Case, at Oubliette at the Art Collective on
22nd.
Yeah, Alan will tell you the dates and the place.
I'm Alan Sharpington. I am also one half of DonkeyWork. We are putting on The Case here. I'm co-writer, co-producer, and we are performing from the 22nd to the 27th of June 2009, 7:30 Monday to Saturday, with a 9 o'clock show on Friday and Saturday.
In addition?
In addition to those other times, yes. And it's free to get in, and we'll talk about getting out when you get here.